welcome to another live stream. It's Monday. I'm growing a beard and it's super itchy. So subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm wearing the subscribe hat of shame until we get to 1,000,000. Might be a long road. This might get to be an old hat. But today I'm going to start with some questions we got from the chat. If you're not familiar, we chat basically an hour before we go live. And I picked a couple of, I would say, choice ones just to get started today. We're going to be doing Q&A like normal. And yeah, I have to leave early, by the way. Today, I'll be leaving 30 minutes early because I have to take my old lady dog, Sassy, to the vet with my wife. So, not feeling so good. All right. Paul Martin asked, will you speak a bit about Undergravel filter setups in regards to live plants, basically non-rhizome plants and root tabs, and if there's any benefits and things like that? So, first, the first big myth I would say is you can't use an undergravel filter in plants. You definitely can. There's definitely, I know some aquarists who do it intentionally. They get really good results. I've tested it, also had great results. When it comes to plants, yes, the roots are going to grow down, right? Down in the filter plate, and that could clog it up long term. Now that is going to be very, very dense root growth, and usually takes a few years to get to that point and could choke off. But at the point you've got that many plants, you don't really worry about waste anymore. So you don't really need the undergravel filter, if that makes sense. When it comes to root tabs and things like that, it's kind of a catch-22. If you have a really fast moving undergravel filter, so lots of air going, it's really pulling stuff through, yeah, it's going to cloud the water once it finally releases some of those fines down into the plate and then going up through the exhaust. So I wouldn't necessarily do that, but you could do something like Eco-Complete or something like that where it recharges based on fertilizer you put in, right? And so that is kind of beneficial. The other benefits you get is really good circulation around the roots, which is good. You get really good CO2 and oxygen delivery and going through the substrate. And in general, I find if I had to pick one, I think you get a slight bit better growth out of having an undergravel filter versus not having one. Not a huge difference though. What I do like is that you still get all the benefits of oxygen. You still get the benefits of mostly it hiding in the back behind plants, and very low tech, cheap. Well, they're not even that cheap anymore. They're kind of hard to find, but they can be cheap if you find them used. And then, you know, an air pump and you're good to go, as opposed to using more equipment. What I also like about it is it doesn't introduce as much heat. So every time you have a plugged-in device, such as a hang-on back, a canister filter, the light above the aquarium, a power head, a heater, all of those, because they use energy, will transfer heat. Now, an air pump does that too, but it uses so little energy to do that. It doesn't transfer as much heat. And so that means in the summer, your house is going to run less warm. It'll mean that your plants won't get as hot, and typically plants want to be cooler as opposed to hotter. And yeah, less evaporation if you're running a rimless tank and all that kind of stuff. Well, maybe not necessarily less, but heat in general, less heat, closer room temperature, which case less evaporation. But if you don't have a top on it and you're running an undergravel filter, you're going to get a lot of evaporation anyway. So there's pros and cons to it, but I would say if you're on the fence or you already own a undergravel filter, do it. And I do think you get a little bit better growth, and it can help if you have digging fish too. Like if you get a really dense plant carpet growing with the undergravel filter plate, then you get something going in there to dig. The plants hold on to the filter plate and they don't get dug up as much. So I put it in the I like it column. I don't run all my tanks that way. I could. I've thought about it. There's some advanced setups I still want to play with. That's what I do love about the hobby, is even today there's still things that I want to test, I want to try, new ideas. You see different people doing different things, and it makes me want to try stuff. So maybe someday I'll run that experiment. Next up, we have one from the fish tank barn. If there's any fish I'm excited to keep in the new fish room, mostly it's going to be livebearers. Still excited, even for the same livebearers, but I'm excited to have much harder water, which in theory should, I'm thinking, possibly increase yields. So give birth to more fry, maybe get better coloration. I'm not quite sure yet. I've never been able to have naturally hard water out of the tap. And so I've always had to artificially make it harder. and I'm interested to see if there are differences. I'm also a little excited when we tested in the summer. It was like 5 parts per million nitrates coming out of the well. I'm interested to see, is it still that way now that we're kind of towards winter? And if it's still there, I'm excited because that's going to fuel plant growth a little bit. And I'm not going to do a lot of water changes. I'm going to do some topping off for evaporation and stuff. And so when water does come in, it's going to bring minerals. It's also going to bring nitrates in there, which I'm interested to see because my tanks in general run very light in waste, meaning that I feed and there's a ton of fish, but the plants consume it so fast that I might have to put fertilizer in, and I'm hoping that with water naturally carrying in some quote-unquote fertilizer, I might get a little bit more growth. I'm interested to see things like, will I get more green water growth when I'm trying to do Daphnia and scuds and other stuff outside? Will that be a thing, or will it just be a non-issue? But some stuff like that, like shrimp, scuds, Daphnia, with having harder water, that is going to be a huge leg up for me. And then also having well water, because the biggest thing with Daphnia is actually the chemicals in dechlorinator kill the Daphnia. And I hadn't thought about that till right now, but there's a huge chance I could just do a giant Daphnia farm, and I'm pretty excited about that because the hardest thing is changing the water. When you get to a point, if you saw some of my super old videos on the channel where we were harvesting, like every week we'd harvest pounds, like literal pounds of just Daphnia. The problem was they would molt so much, and then the water would get very high ammonia, and you would eventually get to a point, even though they can tolerate like 5 parts per million, you get to a point where it would crash. And not being able to do water changes, because I didn't have that much seasoned water that didn't have dechlorinator and other chemicals in it around. So we might be able to do something pretty cool going forward. We'll see. I don't know yet. But those are the things I'm looking forward to play with. I've done most things at this point, and doing it in a different a different way and experiencing it differently and learning from it. And there's probably going to be some keys I get to unlock of like, wow, if I had only known this much calcium in the water would have done this to this, which I can't know that now. I can only know what I've experienced so far. So I'm excited for those things. All right, and today we're just doing a general Q&A, the last half an hour. If I remember, I'll probably kick it to just members only. Thank you for the new members that have joined. Otherwise, do me a favor, and if you can, come up with like, so there's always people that need things answered, like my fish is sick, what do I do? But if you're just someone who attends the live stream regularly, spend a little bit of time maybe every week and think of like a good topical question. We're like talking like plants and undergravel filters. I don't talk about that all the time. It was kind of nice to dive into that instead of specifically, my scarlet temple's not quite red enough, what should I do? It was a more broad topic that I think a lot of people could get some knowledge from. So if you happen to think of good questions like that throughout the week, or even right now during the live stream, I will always tend to favor towards a question I don't answer all the time, or something that seems interesting to myself. When's the next time I'll be at my shop? Probably never. I say that just because things come to a grinding halt when I'm there. I mean, I will be there like a couple times this week, usually after hours for filming and doing those types of things. I was there last Thursday, but I don't announce it or anything because it becomes a problem. Can you have too much light without the presence of CO2? Let me think if that can be true. It can be true. It's hard to do, though. You would need quite a bit of light. Man, I even had some broth today to help. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, you can have so much light that you can actually burn plants. What would happen is, typically when the lights come on in the morning, let's say you've got 15 parts per million CO2. And over time with the lights being on, you're going to start utilizing that CO2 just like you're going to utilize the fertilizers you're putting in, right? And at some point, you're going to run out of CO2. Then you're going to get some retarded growth where, maybe you're growing at 100%. Now you're like, oh, it's struggling at like 20% for the last few hours on the day. And you might get a little bit of twisted leaves or something long term. But in general, most tanks hit that limit unless you're injecting CO2 anyway. Things like an air stone are going to help bring back a little bit of CO2. So when you hit rock bottom, you put in oxygen or air, Some of that CO2 is going to dissolve back in. That'll give it little bits, right? Your fish constantly all day are making little bits of CO2 as well. And then you can do some advanced tactics like that's where the siesta method came from. And what that means is maybe you have your light on for 4 hours, right? And you use up all that CO2 and you're out. Then the light goes out for 3 or 4 hours. CO2, if you didn't know, builds back up. Basically, plants create CO2, fish create CO2, things breaking down create CO2. So those next 4 hours, you're building CO2 back up. And then your light comes back on for 4 hours again, and you utilize it all. Then it shuts off for 8. So that's the siesta method, and it's kind of a cheap way to get more CO2 into your aquarium, if that makes sense, or more growth. But a lot of seasoned aquarists don't really want more growth. Like me personally, I want plants to look good and grow very slowly so I don't have to trim them all the time. Now at the store or at the warehouse, we want to grow really fast, convert for you guys, look nice, be robust, all of that. So we're injecting CO2, but at home, once they're growing fine, I don't want, in a perfect world, they would just stay the same size for me. I would actually enjoy that better. So that's why I don't do any siesta methods or anything like that, because I'm not trying to encourage faster growth. And if I really need that growth, I would just use CO2, which very, very far and few between. But the only time we actually put some CO2 lately on Murphy's tank, because I swapped it all out. If you've gone to the Murphy cam, you go, wow, it looks way different. And we're trying to build a whole carpet of pygmy chainsword. So we injected the CO2, and now there's not enough nutrients, so I relaxed the water change schedule, and now we're putting some fertilizer in, where before it had more water change because Murphy goes to the bathroom quite a bit, and it was building up. But by adding the CO2 is no longer the limiting factor. So, you got, whenever you change one thing, whether it's lighting, CO2, fertilizer, it will change, or not change, it'll have an effect on other things as well. So watch out for that. It basically just speeds things up is all it's going to do. What are some considerations when redoing a tank, such as wanting to switch a tank from a guppy colony to a clown killifish tank? For the most part, what I look at would be, are you going to have similar water parameters? So if you had to use, let's say, lots of live rock and crushed coral and all of those things to get your water super hard for guppies, your clown killies want that. On average, as a hobbyist, I kind of go for middle of the road, so my guppies would like maybe 7.2, and so are my clown killifish. So I set it up so that my tanks can do whatever they want, whenever they want, pretty much. And I can move fish and snails and all that kind of stuff between them if I ever needed to. And I'm very much, if all my tanks are running similarly, when I make one change and it's a good change, then I can usually install that change down the line, whether it's an auto feeder, whether it's an auto doser, whether it's I'm going to change water this much, or I'm going to feed this much. It's all, it's easier to replicate. So if you run, like I'm only running probably 20 some tanks right now, and at the new one, I'll probably be running more like closer to 100, right? You want it so that you can reasonably keep on track and know, and not like, okay, well, this one runs at this pH, this runs at this pH, this is running dark or black water, this one's running very low, this one's salt water, this one's actually brackish, this one we're going to do this light cycle on, this one we're going to do CO2, but this one we're not. You start getting into how can you keep track of all of them. And so for me, most of mine are all kind of on the same range that I keep, because I keep community fish and planet tanks, and mostly everything there can be forced to live together or enjoy the same parameters for the most part. Welcome to the new members. Brian says, I've got a 5-gallon tank with a betta and 4 shrimp. The shrimp have been doing well as the plants. The betta stopped eating a week ago and now floats sideways on the top of the water. Could be constipated, could be maybe it got too cold, because like shrimp wouldn't react necessarily to the coldness, but if it dropped down to like 65 degrees in your house, betta got real cold, could get constipated from eating. I would look at an environmental factor, check out temperature, check out pH. If all of those look good, like pH is 7, temperature is 78, I don't see anything that's been wrong. Could be that like, oh, it's got a bad kidney or something internally is wrong. Could have a tumor, swim bladder problem. It's really hard. You know, it's people always want to know what the answer is, and the reality is, just like my dog, right? We're gonna take it to the vet. My dog can get everything that a human can. It can get cancer. It can have bad hips, arthritis. It could get a cold, all of that kind of stuff, right? And that's the same way with a fish. They basically can get, they can get viruses. Oh, they can get cancer. They can get tumors. They can get organs that go bad. You know, they can have gill issues, all of this stuff, right? And so we try, just like I can't walk up to someone and look at them and be like, oh, your kidney's going bad, right? We got to do a lot of testing, and professionals do that. Same thing for fish. It's like, well, there's something wrong with this fish, or there's something wrong with this person here. What do we think it is? Like, and unless you've got diagnostic tools, which we as aquarists typically don't, we have to rely on other things. So, for instance, if I was to get ill and there was no professionals to diagnose me, you would be forced to look at environmental factors. And you'd go, okay, that guy sits at a computer a lot. He's got a high-stress job. Okay, maybe he's having a heart attack. And then you might go, oh, he's overweight. Okay, well, maybe there's something wrong with that. Like maybe he's got cholesterol, right? Now, being that we can go to the doctor, I know like, oh, I don't have cholesterol problems. I don't have diabetes. I don't have any ulcers. Like you can get all that tested. But in an aquarium, we don't have that option because taking that fish to a vet, they might be like, oh, it's $400 and we still have no idea. And so that's where I say look at the environmental stuff because that's what we can. We can go, what is the temperature? What is the pH? Is there any ammonia in there? What else could be going wrong? Did we drop something in that tank? Is there like lotion get in there? Like any of that kind of stuff. It's usually environmental is about the thing that we can do. Because if it's not environmental, because we take care of the environment on a fish, if it's not that, we don't really have control over it anymore, right? So that's kind of the problem. All right. How did Danny Perez spam so much? Is slow mode not on? I don't even know how that happened. Let me make sure slow mode's on. I said it earlier. Getting spammed. It's on. All right. Can you breed brine shrimp? Yes. On the forum, actually, there is a post on there about how I did it outside. And when they're happy, they're a live bear, just like guppies would be. And then when they're, you know, let's say water's too cold or too salty or not salty enough or not enough food, when there's something stressful, then they go into egg laying mode. So even though we hatch them out as brine shrimp, that's all you'd have to do. Hatch them out once. And then if you keep them happy, they will be a live bear and you can raise them up to adults. And we did that. And they're a filter feeder. Not that difficult, but also, there's not a huge yield on it unless you happen to have like tons of salt water available. Like you have a saltwater store, you have a lot of salt water changing out of coral tanks and that kind of stuff that's enriched in nutrients and makes your job a lot easier. Do I think easy carbon is a good substitute for CO2? No, definitely not. Could not be further from a substitute for that. I'm having trouble with dwarf baby tears carpeting. I don't feel the need. But don't feel the need. I will need extra CO2 once it carpets. Dwarf baby tears can technically be done without CO2. I've seen it done. I've done it a little bit. It just grows faster with CO2. It needs lots of high light, but easy carbon is an algicide. It's not a replacement for like gas CO2. Will I make how-to videos as I build the fish room? That's currently the plan. Now, whether the plan and actuality play out together, I'm not quite sure yet. But the plan is once we get everything kind of built out in terms of like the room, Dean and I plan to put in the ponds and do a bunch of stuff. Yeah, if we're gonna, most of those videos that get released like that will be put out on the More Aquarium Co-Op channel. That's, you got to type in More Aquarium Co-Op, and that's our sister channel, our secondary channel. We put out videos every Friday there, And that's where something like that would go, because a whole dedicated video to, like fish room drainage only applies to maybe 30%, or maybe the true fish nerds, right? Where the general populace is going, hey, I just got my first aquarium. I don't need to know how do I drain 100 aquariums at the same time. What's the fastest way to make plants grow? Make them happy. Yeah, there's no tricks. They need lots of food, and part of that is CO2. They need lots of light. They need to not grow a ton of algae. They need to make sure they don't have fish eating on them. They need to have reasonable water parameters like pH and stuff like that. But there's no trick to go, well, I grow my plants 10 times faster than someone else. Like, well, they kind of grow what they're going to grow, and you could optimize a little bit if you could keep the algae at bay, and you could siesta method a bunch, and maybe you can get up to 15 or 16 hours of growth every day if you split it up and do all the right things, as opposed to I could do nothing and just get 12 hours of growth. Not nothing, but like way less work and just get 12. That's why everyone, to grow plants quote unquote fast, they grow them out of water, because the air we breathe basically has unlimited amounts of oxygen, CO2 in it, and light coming in doesn't get filtered out by water. So it's getting more light and more CO2, and then you just got to supply the nutrients to the roots. And by doing that, you make an immerse grown plant that can then convert later. That's the fastest. How do I tell the difference between water sprite and water sprite and not water hyacinth? Wisteria. You go and you watch the live stream from 2 weeks ago, not the Halloween one, but the one before, and we went over that and I showed pictures and everything. There's not an easy way to say like, oh, look for it, because they grow, can be very similar depending on lighting. Just got my 8 ponds set up from Daco. Ooh, they're spendy. They are spendy. Like, those ponds are a couple $100 a piece. Well, more than that, but I think the perk of them is they will last you a lifetime. And if you're a lifelong hobbyist, it's a good investment. It's like buying a tool. If you buy a hammer and then you use that hammer for 40 years, like the return on that is insane. It's when you buy something that you use for, like, you buy the wrong Christmas gift and the person just goes, oh, let me set that over there where I won't use that. That's what you're trying to avoid. So I don't really have a problem investing in stuff I know I'll use long term. And as I get older, I'm able to identify what is that long term use. Otherwise, I like to go super cheap. Like this shirt, $5 on Amazon. All right, soaking a large red moor root. Okay, that's for 2 weeks. It stinks after 2 days with no water changes of rotten eggs. Is this at all safe to put in a tank? Ooh, I don't know. You're gonna have to look that up and Google it and try to get to the bottom of that. There's a lot of, there's a lot of different woods that could rot. There's a lot of woods where the sap is toxic, and so usually you have to find it dead already. I don't know if specifically with red moor root. I've never actually heard of that, so I don't know. You mentioned supporting a documentary about wild fish collecting. Has it been finished? Yes. Well, yes. As far as I know, it's been finished. And the last thing that I had seen was the person wanted to be paid for his time, which everyone should get paid for their time. And he was hoping that one of the companies would buy it for $20,000. And I think just no one's willing to buy it, I guess. I can't remember how much we donated, but there's quite a few companies, I think, like Seagrass, Petco, us, a few others that I'm not downplaying them, I just can't remember them all. But everyone, all of those people donated money to help get the thing made, right? And then now that it's, the last thing I had seen was, it was, he wanted $20,000 for it, or he was going to release it so that people could pay, I think, $5 to watch it. And my advice was, you could certainly do that, but we all kind of funded this project with, let's get, you know, the information out there and all of that. Like, I'm willing to donate money. It's another thing to charge money for it, right? So it's kind of changed a little bit. And I don't know, like, I haven't talked to anyone in about 6 months about it. So, you know, kind of COVID hit, and then I think everyone's life's been different, you know, and busy and whatnot. So I still hold hope it's going to come out. I've seen it. It's really a cool documentary. It's in different languages, and it's got a lot of stuff in there. It's a hard one, especially right now, for any company to be like, yeah, let's invest $20,000 into something we want to give away for free. It's a great philanthropy project, but most businesses right now are in a crunch. You know, like, shipping's crazy high. And maybe this is a good segue, because we've been getting hit up a lot, like, are you guys going to have Black Friday sales? And my response so far has been no. We always have years past. We knew last year that we were going to stop doing discount and sales and just streamline what we were doing instead. And that's been a very good move for us, because right now shipping has gone up, delays have gone up. And so what that means is when we ship plants and they don't arrive to you healthy, we have to reship them, and that costs us lots of money. Right now we charge $5 for shipping, and on average it costs us $10.25 to ship a package. So every time we ship, we're already losing kind of money, and that's where the discounts come in, of like, well, why would I buy from Aquarium Co-op versus someone else? And one, we have cheaper shipping. That's good. We have very, very fast shipping, much faster than most other companies. And then we invest everything else into education. I often want to say, like, well, how often does that thing on Amazon do a 2-hour special to teach you about it? How often does this other company teach you? How often do they answer your customer service? So what we've focused on is, let's not drop the ball, and instead keep up great customer service and shipping speeds and all of that, and something that's sustainable. Right now, it's hard to even get stuff in. As you guys say, like, where's Pink Flamingo? I guarantee you we have ordered it every week since we've ever introduced it. And there was times, you guys have heard me, where it's crazy that we order 400 Amazon swords and we'll get 0, or we'll get 30. And so for us to stay afloat and keep all 27 employees employed, we can't take the only 30 swords we got and then sell them at a discount. Like, right now, we'll sell the 30 regardless, which I totally get the other side of it. Like, well, that's not great for us. The only thing I can say is, well, if you want to see us around for a long time and do more live streams, make more videos, be there when you ask a question for customer service, we got to make a certain profit, essentially. Like, that's what it comes down to. You got to pay the employees and do things. And, even stuff like, if we're going to make how to build another fish room, right? Like, well, we have to build a fish room. That costs money. And so we're investing all the profits back into projects like that. And so, yeah, we're not doing that because we don't want to cause it just didn't make sense to take a product that's hard to get, put it on sale, then put it through the mail where it could have a delay and we'll have to reship it, and we'd end up losing lots of money, and that's what we don't want to do. And I see a lot of competitors joining that rat race, basically, of like, well, Amazon and Home Depot and all these places, they've already got Black Friday deals. If I want to make any money, I better discount my stuff. And that is one way, but at the same time, when we looked at why we stopped discounting, is by the time we did the discount, we did all the awesome customer service, we would lose money. In fact, there will be a change coming to the website once the coders are done. Typically, any order in which people order less than $10 for the stuff, so if you buy like, well, it's going to look weird on camera, but you buy one sponge filter, right? If you buy just one sponge filter and pay the $5 shipping, we actually lose money. And so if you bought a sponge filter and anything else, basically if you spend $10 and the $5 shipping, it costs us $10.25 to ship it. We already established that, right? So at least then we're not losing money by the time we pay the credit card fees and all that. So, one of my core business principles has always been don't do things that lose you money if you want to stay in business. And we've identified that we used to have shipping that was $6.99. And if you may have noticed, we lowered it to $4.99. So we did lower that. But the converse part of that is some shipments became unprofitable. People that order one airstone, right? That total order costs $7. We basically pay $10.25 to ship it. We lost $3 giving someone an airstone. We basically said, you can have this, and we're going to lose $3. So that's where some of that, and I'm sure there'll be some people go, how dare you? I like to order one sticker, and it's like, well, to work for the majority of people, that's what we'll do. And that's our goal. Our goal is to just keep doing what we've been doing year round and not go, well, we did a crazy thing this one month. Slow and steady. Can you grow star organic pens without CO2? You can. You just want highlight and good fertilizer. Yes. Very few plants have to have injected CO2. And that's a good thing to note. It's not that you have to have injected CO2. It's that you can't run out of CO2. So if you have only a little bit of plants and a lot of water, there'll be quite a bit of CO2. If you have a lot of plants and not very much water, you run out of CO2 pretty quick. I thought shipping was going up to $9.99 at some point. We actually did have shipping at $9.99 at the beginning of last year. Basically, the way it works is shipping is kind of always a moving target. Because we now have sold some more, we get a slightly, well, let me just give you the timeline, right? Basically, at the end of last year, we're losing money on shipments. Things are going like, okay, we got to change some stuff here. We can't keep super good customer service up and cheap products and cheap shipping. So we raised the shipping price, right? Then we qualified for a discount. We're like, oh, we're selling a lot. Great. We got a discount. And then they raised shipping prices, right? In like April. So that nullified that. So like, okay, we're back to, so we're kind of like, we were down, neutral, and then we saved money down, and then neutral again. And then starting in October, prices went up, right? So because of surge demand, as they're calling it, for COVID, presidential election ballots, just more people shopping at home from COVID, right? Basically, USPS and FedEx and UPS all say right now, today, October or November 9th, they're already at higher levels than they would be during Christmas, which is usually the peak of the year. So they're already shipping more right now than they would in any other year at the peak. So that's why they raised prices. So now prices went up, and it only went up by 5% roughly. That doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it's when that happens a couple of times a year where you're just like, geez, it's really hard to get ahead when, we do something operational wise, like, great, we're going to save 2%. And then they go, 5% more. You're like, okay, now we're down 3% actually. And when you're looking at, we try to do a lot of philanthropy things. We support a lot of influencers. We do a lot of content. Like one of the influencers works with a Girl Scout troop. We donated 10 aquariums, 10 lights, 10 easy planters, 20 plants, substrates, easy greens, dechlorinators, might be tops too. But, all that times 10, that just takes away from, profit. You got to sell a lot of air stones to make up for all of the stuff we gave away, but it helps get more young people in the hobby. And they're working on like some kind of nature badge and things like that. But yeah, so it's, we're always trying to meander our way through, and, we're trying to do what's best and fair for everyone. Is there a way to get rid of snails? Any fish that eat them? A lot of loaches will eat them. Some puffers will as well. Most puffers will. Those are the main two. Assassin snails also would eat them. Or kill them, at least. Should I buy Soylent Green or just try Bacter AE? I'm wondering if that's in relation to shrimp. Either one will do you. I like Rapashi a little bit. But, yeah, without knowing the other part, I don't quite know for you. Could you breed enough brine shrimp in a 5-gallon bucket to maintain 6 tanks? No, you just hatch it. takes kind of a lot of water to really breed brine shrimp. So hatching it is definitely going to be that space saver option for you. Well, tiger barbs, ooh, where'd that go? Something about blood parrots. I don't know where it went. Scroll on my screen. But will tiger barbs nip at blood parrots? Usually not if they're in a decent group. We actually were doing that. This tank in the 800-gallon at one point also had blood parrots. And it wasn't a problem, but we ran lots and lots of tiger barbs. So, by the way, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. What's my favorite guppy breed? I really like just mutt guppies. They're all great. But if I can only choose one, that one, because you get all the colors. Is a meme stream soon? Maybe. Maybe someday I'll get the time. At the moment, there is zero time. I actually was set on not doing a live stream today, but I was like, I think I can fit it in. I had a meeting with Robert, the store manager, until about 30 minutes or so ago. Well, before I went live. I've been live for 30 minutes. Then I crammed down a little bit of lunch and some nuts, and then I went live. So I wasn't quite sure I was going to have that time. And in fact, I'm trading things. Like right now, there was a contractor working on the fish room. I don't know what got done. If they had any questions for me, they didn't text me, but normally I should go meet them kind of every day and just touch base and see what's going on. But I was like, let's do the live stream today. So yeah, I don't know when I'll have time to get ready for the meme stream. Is it possible to breed narite snails? Yes. Always dislike keeping snails, but after the videos, I decided to get some for an algae problem. Yeah, they need brackish water to hatch out, and narite snails they're like a larva state or larval state, so they're not as easy as normal snails, but it can be done. Senor Panchito, welcome to the Nerms. Do mini ponds require a water change? With plants and aeration, is that enough? Well, technically, so if you balance an aquarium, almost no water changes would ever be needed. Now, whether that's an aquarium, a mini pond, a giant aquarium, all of it's kind of the same. It's just on scale. Typically, the more water you have, the easier it is to balance out, because if you have 500,000 gallons of water, you can't afford to put crazy amounts of fish in there. So just the more water you have typically. Or if you only have 5 gallons of water, it's not too expensive to buy a ton of fish and cram it in there. So, but yes, on a very topical level, technically every body of water could be balanced without having to get water changes. Is there a how-to on how Dean set up the dimmer on his lights? There is no how-to on that. We talked about it, but we don't want anyone accidentally getting into trouble with electrical if they shouldn't be playing with electrical. We don't want any accidental fires or anything like that. So I told Dean that I wouldn't put it out on my channel, not that he couldn't do something of his own, and he kind of thought the same of like, yeah, we don't want, you don't want necessarily an 11-year-old kid watching a video going, well, I can wire stuff up, right? You kind of want to like, well, you should do some research and kind of know what you're doing. And maybe if you're young, you have parental supervision. If you're older, maybe you have supervision from a friend going, no, that's not how you do that at all. And so there wasn't enough to gain by potentially doing something like that. It's a little crazy. So we decided not to. Do you have a video, or could you explain a simple setup for auto water change system? We do have many videos on that. We have how to build a fish room. We've got detailed versions of my water change, of Dean's water change. There's a lot of videos there. You mostly got to understand the concepts, and then you end up, every install always ends up being custom. It's not a one size fits all. Not everyone's got drains put in. Not everyone's got hot and cold. Not everyone's got thermal regulation for the temperature. So there's, but I mean, I'll film when we do ours, but my new place won't be as, I want to say, relatable. Like, for instance, because I'm doing kind of a big fish room build and I'm going to breed a lot of fish, and I know that I'm going to use this device for a long time, I ended up buying a temperature controller like the one that Dean has, actually a little bit bigger of a unit, and it was like $1,200, which is insane. But it's lab grade and it will do what we need it to do, and we've been really impressed with what it's done for Dean. And you know, like if I ever had to rebuild a store, I'd put one in there, but the home hobbyist wouldn't need some at that level. Like normally an $80 valve can get you pretty good. And yeah, that's mostly it's I wanted to play with it too. Like it's wow, I haven't done that yet. And when you haven't done something, I like to learn about stuff, and then I can, you know, if I use this $1,200 one and then I've used the $80 one, right? Well, what is the actual benefits of the $1,200 one? Or should I just keep telling people, just buy the $80 one? Don't worry, it's almost the same. What I've noticed, for instance, with the $80 one at the store, because now it's been 7 years, right? Each time we have to adjust seasonally. So we do have to adjust seasonally for basically summer and winter when the tap water is already at a certain temperature. Maybe it's down around 40 or maybe it's up around 80 during the summer. We have to adjust that a bit, and because it's a plastic housing, those teeth inside kind of wear down and break, and it gets harder and harder each year to really dial it in, where this new $1,200 thingy, it's all digital. So I'm hoping that would alleviate that, but I won't know for years to get that long-term testing in. And I'm not a plumber, but if I had to hire someone to install an $80 temperature control valve once every 7 years, you could probably do that for quite a few years before you'd hit the price of the more expensive one. That being said, maybe it's got some other benefits I don't know about yet, and that's what I'm, you obviously read the package and all that, but maybe you don't, just because you read something, you don't realize, like, oh, wow, this is doing this. I really wanted it to do that, or, oh, it's still the same. Don't know yet. Do I have a video that could explain a simple DIY auto water change system? Yes? I mean, so you're going to use, like if you go way back in the fish room, right? You drill your aquarium and the aquarium drains to a drain. Maybe that drains on your floor. Maybe it drains into a pipe that goes to a drain. Maybe it drains outside, right? So that's the basic. Water's got to leave. And then on the very basic, water has to come in. My first fish room that was here, we had a giant tank that held, I think, about 600 gallons of water, right? Then I put a pump in there, a power head, with a hose to it. And then that hose ran to outlets above the aquariums. I set up the hose to run on a timer. The timer ran for 5 minutes. It changes water in all the tanks for 5 minutes. Then, like once a week, I have to go fill that giant thing of water. That's the very basic kind of DIY setup. From there, you start going to where you tap into actual lines of water, and you use things like irrigation controllers and solenoid valves. And that's what my system will be going forward. In fact, I'm going to use some new technology and use Bluetooth, so that in theory, I'm just going to press a button and it can open up a valve and let water flow, and you can schedule it, and you can do, yeah. Could I have tiered shipping prices based on how much I spent? I can, but that basically makes it so we go out of business. So the way e-commerce works is if there's a surprise when people get to the checkout, they just don't check out. They go, oh, had I known it was going to be $6, I would have never even shopped. Kind of imagine that you would go to shop at your grocery store, right? And at the end, there's always a random, not a random, but there's always a fee based on how much your groceries weigh. If you go there and you're like, what, the fee's $27? I'm not buying that. Whereas if you know, like, oh, it's always going to be $5, you can budget around that. And that's the way e-commerce basically works, is any surprise at the end just means people don't buy. And so and it's not that no one does, it's that you might go from 5 out of 10 people buy to now it's 1 out of 10, because 4 out of 10 just go, well, I'll just go to Amazon. It's free, or I just pay my one fee, or it's a flat rate, or I get free shipping at a price. And we used to do that, and we have years of data. That's the thing, is like most things we've been doing for many years, and we got the data to show like, oh, once you just let people know what it's going to cost, then they know and they don't drop out. So, yeah, there's plenty of ways. If we were really trying to maximize profits, things like lights, we would charge a ton of shipping for. The average Fluval light to ship out is around $22, right? But to remain competitive, we have to do the shipping for free. So, yeah, mostly we just need to cover the lower end where, we had like a 4-ounce bottle of Ikex was $4. We lost money on that one too. Anything that's like, if you just buy one item at $5 and then pay $5 shipping, we got to pay to over $10 to ship it, that's where we lost the money. So we're just going to make it so, yeah, buy 2 bottles of Ikex, and then we don't lose money. We won't make money, but we won't lose money. That's all I'm trying to do, is not lose money. It's okay to make very little amounts on a very small order, but to lose money, to actually pay someone, take it away, that hurts. Especially when you've got employees that work really hard and, it's like, well, there's no money to pay them because we lost money. I was going to order some snails from Aquatic Arts until I saw the shipping was $69. Point proven, right? Like, had you known at the beginning it was $69, you wouldn't even have wasted time, right? And so that's where you get this weird, So it's you got to figure out what is your business model. Like, you kind of know, like, oh, Walmart's the lowest price. They're not known for the highest quality, but the lowest price. I want Aquarium Co-Op to be known for high quality and high expertise or help, right? And fast shipping. Those are the things that we target. Now, we're not known for being the cheapest, right? Because in general, you can't be the cheapest and offer like the best support and have the highest quality. You got to pick some of those things. And we do our best to get, like obviously we could make every package be overnight shipping, but then it literally would be $69 shipping instead of $5 shipping. So you take some concessions at some places. A lot of our competitors, if you were to order, some food, it's going to take, 7 to 12 days because they'll ship UPS ground. We ship everything priority, which is 1 to 3 days. But with COVID going on right now, it's more like 1 to 4, maybe 5. If you're really far away from us and there's a blizzard and a hurricane and COVID going on, it's going to take that 5 or 6 day. And we just cover it all. If we shipped plants and a hurricane, a tornado, a snowstorm, and something else happened, like, well, that's doing business, and unfortunately, we're gonna have to just make it right. That's what we do, and that's the thing. If you guys have had problems, you'll know that you email us and we do make it right. We don't make you battle us. A lot of people or companies would be like, well, we're gonna need proof of purchase. We're gonna need the original box. We're gonna need it to never be used. We're gonna need this. We're gonna need this. Most companies say take it up with USPS, which USPS just laughs at you, and they just go, COVID, right? And we're overworked. We're not going to do anything. Yeah. So that's where we're at. Welcome, Winter Storm D. I think he caused the delay. Winter Storm D is what was holding up the package to Florida. Hard or soft shell tacos? Let's get things clear here. Only ever hard shelled tacos. Only ever soft shelled turtles. Words to live by. A pea puffer. How do I get it to eat? I tried snails and frozen foods. It only eats worms and the substrate. That can be hard. Starvation is a good one. I would say plump that guy up, get him eating a lot of worms, and then don't offer him any worms. Just leave snails in the tank and put, a couple frozen bloodworms in, like literally a couple of frozen bloodworms in each day. And if they don't get eaten, the snails will eat them. And eventually he's going to get hungry. And when he gets hungry, he'll start snacking on some stuff. Just got some shrimp from Aquahuna. great product, only $13 shipping. Yeah, so people we work with, we try and help them as well. Like $13 shipping is very cheap for shipping live animals, right? But it's not going to surprise you at the end where you go, oh my gosh, $69. You might pay a few more dollars for those shrimp or those fish, but that's, we also talk to them like, you got to get the just make it right mentality. Like, if something goes wrong, just make it right for the customer. If you got to raise your prices a little bit, do that. But, you can't just be like, oh, things died? Sorry. It's got to be, you got to make it right for the customer, at least work with us. That's our mentality is got to make it right. Did we do something wrong? Got to make it right. Did USPS do something wrong? Well, we'll make it right. And what we ask of our customers is, well, let's make sure the plant's going to arrive dead or make sure that it's damaged. And if it is, we'll take care of it. If it's just like, well, it's looking a tiny bit rough, how about we wait 7 to 10 days? Oh, it's growing really good? Great. Now we don't have to reship it and we don't lose money. Good. If it's, if you get a light, we've had lights before where they're bent into an L shape and you're like, what went on here? This is ridiculous. Yep, we send one out at our own costs, we lose a bunch of money, and we just know that, it's all in numbers games for us. So we like to keep claims under 5%, damage rates under 5%, all of that. So as long as it's a very small number that have problems, it works out. And so, like, I think last month we shipped 14,000 packages, right? That's a lot of packages. And so 5% of that, which is still a pretty small ratio, could have problems, and we deem that to be okay. And so it really is not fun when someone has to be on the receiving end of that. Like, everything came damaged. Like, well, odds are out of that many packages, some are going to get lost, damaged, stolen. Things happen, and we just document and move on. Try to build it in. Are there going to be any new interviews on the Aquarius podcast anytime soon? I mean, is today not soon enough? Like, there's literally one today. I even shared it on the community post. I think there was one like last week or the week before. So, yes. I'm from Italy. Can you help me with my first 5-gallon? For now, I put lots of plants, and after some months, I want to get some fish. What do you suggest? In a 5-gallon, you could do fish, but I would actually tell you do shrimp, because a 5-gallon shrimp tank is kind of a wonderland where fish is going to be like, well, you can get like 6 rasboras and a couple of snails maybe, and you run out of space real fast. And so, think of it like an apartment. If you have a small apartment, you might be able to have a pair of cats, and it's like, ooh, this is enjoyable. And if you have that small apartment and you get if you get like a Great Dane, you're like, oh geez, this is not working out so well. Now that being said, you're like, well, I have a 10,000 square foot house. Guess what? You can have 5 cats, 6 Great Danes, you can have all the animals. But in that small space, I think, those shrimp, kind of like the cats, they make more sense. If you had a bigger aquarium, okay, well, let's delve into the Great Danes. But you can do it. You can do anything you want to do. How do I like the new commute from the new house to the warehouse? I don't know. I don't really do that commute yet. I'm still at the old house. So slow process. Now I'm looking forward to like, oh, I could move these tanks in the middle of winter. Oh, yep. It's one of those things that, like, if you guys haven't been following on the forum, we bought this place, right? And we've been remodeling the fish room. And at first there was a leak in the skylight, had that repaired. Then there was mice in the wall, ripped all that out, replaced it. And then we found out it was crazy infested in the attic, ripped all that out. Electrical, if you watch the latest video, at one point they put in a garage door opener and they wired in an extension cord. So lots of electrical was being redone. Then we found that there is a leak in the roof in the house, so that's got to get redone. And then last Tuesday, yes, I was having a meeting with Lizzie at the new house because there was contractors there, and I was kind of overseeing it. And they come in, they go, well, there is a giant puddle in the attic because we removed all the insulation because there was the mice droppings. Giant pool of water because the skylight's leaking again. So got the roofers coming out this week to hopefully figure out why it's leaking and fix it. And so it's one of those things of like every week there's like, oh, what else is going wrong? You know, the other week we got broken into. There's all these things. So it's been a very slow process to actually move. At this point, we've had it for like 3 months and we moved closer, but not quickly yet. But we don't want to rush things either. Like, I'd much rather find that there was a mouse problem, get it taken care of before we're in there. Can ceramic media elevate the pH? I know it's supposed to be inert, but I'm pretty sure mine is making my pH go to the sky. I'm trying to think. Sintered glass and ceramic are the most common things used to make bio rings. Unlikely. That's what I'll say. Is it's unlikely. Nothing's impossible, but I'm really trying to think of. I can't think of how or why they would. So unlikely is my answer. Ask the original architect of the house, what's the deal? Well, the house is old. It's like done in the 70s, I think. Which I realize is not that old, but it's still, 50. Well, our roof that was on there was the original from the house. So the roof lasted 50 years, and it's one of those, when we bought the house, we knew it needed replaced. We were just really hoping we could make it through the one season, because I was trying to, not successfully by the way, I was trying to hold off and we could save up money and get a Tesla solar roof so that we could be a little more self-sufficient and just, try that out. But it wouldn't make it through the one season, and we just bought the house. No way we had the money, and plus there's like a 1,000,000-year-long line to get Tesla to do that. So now we're just gonna have to go with a traditional, normal roof, and we're really hoping that it can be done this week. And they said they need 3 days of no rain to be able to put on a new roof. So we're really hoping that we get 3 days here with no rain, because we're on the schedule. We're hoping. Something about money pit. Yeah, new house, money pit for sure. But once you fix it, hopefully it's done. I'm not, not a guy that wants to remodel or do anything like that over and over again. Yeah. Is it normal for cherry shrimp to dart around the tank? I just got them. I'm worried that something's wrong with the water parameters. Yeah, they can do that, especially if you get spooked and that kind of stuff. I was reading some articles yesterday on shrimp and copper, and that's one of the things they could do from that. But it takes a lot of copper, actually. I was reading into it, and it takes way more copper than we would normally have in an aquarium. One of the reasons I was looking into that is I'm still working on the Aquarium Co-op test strips, and I was considering copper and some other parameters, and because it's such small quantities, it doesn't make sense to put it on a test strip. So, but I was doing my research regardless, just to make sure, and now I know the reason why you don't see a whole lot of test strips that test copper, because it's very small amounts of copper, and test strips, aren't crazy accurate when it's like, oh, it needs to be 0.0001 of copper. Like, oh, geez. Yeah. Does phosphate remover pad change your pH or KH? Not that I've seen. Do know that when you use chemicals, they can react with other chemicals. So just because I'm not seeing that doesn't mean that, like, well, I use XYZ water conditioner. Like, that could have a chemical that could react with that one to do something. Could. But not that I've witnessed in what, the products we sell and the way I keep fish. I'm really scared to put shrimps or maybe hardly some endlers in my 20 long. Then I see how people take care of their goldfish in Italy. Yeah, I mean, part of it is I see this kind of come up a lot of like ethically what's right for fish. Like probably nothing. Anything less than, you know, an entire lake for a fish is probably not the same as living in that lake. But then you go like, well, what if you have someone hand feed you every day? Is that better or worse than getting eaten by another fish? So each person individually does what they think is right, you know? So like there's tiger barbs in this 800-gallon aquarium. Is that right? What about a 55? What about a 5,000 gallon? What about a 50,000 gallon? So you kind of have to look internally and go, do I think I'm doing an okay job? Am I enjoying it? Do I think they're happy? If you can answer some of those as yes, you're probably doing okay. If it's, you know, if you're not happy, like let's say it's stressing you out, then I would say, no, don't do that. Robert's sending me a message. Oh, he's asking there's some algae in Murphy's tank. He knows what to do, but he knows, like, don't mess with Murphy. Plus, we're trying to film. You're going to see a couple videos coming out about Murphy soon. How often do we do live streams? Basically, once a week, kind of every Monday. And I'll say that because if it gets crazy too busy, then I don't do one. But for a while now, I've been pretty consistent doing it. I've been doing live streams for the past 5 years, but it's not always once a week. On average, it's once a week, but if I have to travel a lot, and some years we're traveling and I'm visiting exotic places, like if I'm in Peru, there's no internet connection to live stream, but on average, one video or one live stream a week. The Aquarius podcast sort of stopped updating on my podcast app of choice, so I switched to listening to the Aquarium Co-op app. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he was having it originally upload to and all of that. The podcast thing is kind of a good to have thing and not like, what do I want to say? Because we put them on YouTube as well, and that's free, and we make money, that's our preferred method. Whereas the podcast, we have to pay someone to host it, and we don't make any money. So we put all of our attention towards YouTube and our own website and our own forum and that kind of stuff because that can generate money, where the podcast is a convenience that we like to provide everyone so they can just listen to it, but it does cost us money to store all the episodes there and host them. So we don't spend a whole lot of time making sure it's rock and roll. We'll definitely check in and we want it to work. But it's not, you know, when I wake up in the morning, I'm not thinking, ooh, is the podcast doing the right thing? It's more like, how's shipping going? How's the warehouse doing? How's the store doing? What's going on here? What's this going on? Do we get product in today? Is this going to happen? Oh, by the way, let's see. Is this ready to rock and roll? I think it is. I did take some suggestions. Let me click to here. So the suggestions we had was a best-selling and newest products. I have put both those into action. And so if you want to see our best-selling products, because maybe you're new to the brand, you can come through here. And I think it has like the best, like top 25 or something like that throughout here. You can see that. And then also, click the back button here, the newest products. So this one just got put on, I think like today almost. The Zebra Pleco would be brand new sticker with the Easy Planter being the latest release. So, and you can kind of see, like maybe you didn't know we had the Wi-Fi timers, or that's weird that Purigen would be there because I didn't know we had Purigen. I don't know why that popped up there, but you can see, you know, newer products. Maybe you didn't know we were carrying the Fritz ACCR water conditioner, or that we brought Money Ward on a while ago, or a Cyro Pro. So you can see these things. So yeah, we did take those suggestions. I thought they were decent suggestions, and I just wanted to find a good way to implement them, and I think I did. It works out well enough that I think people get the gist of it. Obviously, got to get Jimmy. Jimmy will probably be on this today or tomorrow, getting the new official picture for the Zebra Pleco sticker. But for now, it'll be this little ugly one that we took in the warehouse. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm wearing the hat and everything. If you're that person that, like, I only watch on the TV, you'd have to go to a computer or a phone. All you got to do is do it once, and then that's one more for us. We got to get to the 1,000,000 mark. Once I get to the 1,000,000, I can put Fluval in their place. Make a better hang on back. Is the original Gorilla Glue safe to bond plants to rocks for fish? If it's what is it, cyanoacrylite? I think. If it's that, yes, because that's just liquid acrylic. If it's got other stuff in it, I don't know. I do know that the super glue gel, specifically super glue brand, is 100% safe. With some of that other stuff, I don't know all the ingredients in the Gorilla Glue, and so you'd have to read and make sure. My water comes out at 8.2 pH with 300 ppm GH. KH is around 160. What would you suggest to lower the GH and pH for a betta? I wouldn't. I was almost going to do a whole episode on that of why do we change water parameters? And my answer is usually don't. Like, the work and the stress you're going to cause on your system trying to change the water parameters is probably not worth it. 8.2 pH, is it a little high for bettas? Sure. Will they tolerate it? Yes. If you're having too many problems and you can't handle it, keep a different fish. Like, that's kind of one of those, like, if you can't, you're struggling keeping the fish happy in a non-optimal water parameter, right? Usually you will struggle keeping the water parameters perfect. It's actually harder to keep water super dialed in than it is to keep a fish happy in water that's not super dialed in, right? So that's where it's like, mostly keep what lives well in your water and what you can keep well, and you'll learn over time. It's when you try to do crazy stuff outside of your scope, things don't go so well. Any plans to do different types of easy planters like gray? Currently, no. Nope. Adding colors adds cost and expense and storage fees and all of that, and doesn't add too much to profitability. At this point, we're still negative money. What does that mean? That means it costs a lot of money to develop and bring a product in and do all that, and out of all the ones we sold, we're still negative currently. So we actually have to turn a profit, you know, and go, okay, we made some money. So, like, let's look at this. What am I trying to think of? Okay, I can't tell you what the product is because we're gonna launch it, but I can't tell you. So far, we've been working on this product for about 3 months now, I think, yeah. And so far we have invested about $12,000, right? That was to buy the mold to get it made and do all of that kind of stuff. Then we're gonna ship it over. That'll be like another $3,000. It'll be $15,000 to get some product. We wouldn't launch another version of that product until we've recouped that $15,000, because it's kind of like, you know, you're going to charge $15,000 as a credit card. You should work on paying that off before you do it again, right? And so with like the R&D and stuff like that with the planter, like, well, we're still in the negative. So we'd have to get to the positive. And I guess where I was going with that story is, so if it took us 15 grand to make the first one, right? Not that it did for the planter, it was a different amount, but this other product, for us to launch another version of that, we'd have to make $15,000 in profit. Then it pays for the next one. So if we sell tons of the easy planters, and they make, you know, and they're tons and tons and tons, and it makes sense, yes, we may launch another color, but we're not going to gamble more of like the limited resources we have on that yet when we haven't turned a profit on the first gamble yet. Make sense? I think so. Do I have any tattoos? I don't. No tattoos. What plants are not good for the easy planter? I would say the plants that are the least good would be stem plants, because stem plants that grow to the top, you got to cut them and replant them. That makes the least amount of sense for the planter. Now, it can be done. I did the testing. I did it in my own fish room. It just makes the least sense, where things that make the most sense, Anubias, Java fern, both those are great ones. I like the bulb plants a lot. Crinums, those make a lot of sense to me. Crypts make a lot of sense. Yeah, basically, what are the ones that don't make a whole lot of sense? I wouldn't probably do baby tears, like dwarf baby tears. Maybe not dwarf hairgrass. The carpeting plants. I probably wouldn't do carpeting, but I would do like pygmy chainsword, dwarf sag, val. Any of the stuff that makes runners does really well. Does high pH automatically mean hard water? Nope. They can be completely independent. They go hand in hand a lot, but not all the time. Will we ever ship to Canada? We hope to. That's the hope. You know, we're working on it. That's all I can say is, you know, we would have been further without COVID. But yeah, that's, yeah. I'm just talking a lot about business. I'm like, I don't want to talk more about business. I could, but mostly it was like, you know, it kind of comes down to, do we launch Easy Planter in gray, or do we pay someone to actually start getting stuff ready to ship in Canada? And it's like, I would put money at Canada before I'd put a gray Easy Planter, for instance. But before both of those, let's get Aquarium Co-Op test strips, right? Am I still working out? Yes, I worked out yesterday. I work out twice a week for an hour and a half. And will there be space at the new place for a gym? Maybe. Right now, one of the rooms is dedicated to basically Jimmy's photography and all that stuff we need to do for the website. And we're storing a lot of stuff like heat packs and liners in the other spot. So at some point there might be. But that's one of the few things that I've remained committed to is working out. But I was talking with the trainer that I work with, and I was like, it's crazy that even 3 hours a week is getting hard to come up with. I actually had to reschedule for an hour later on last Wednesday because a plant shipment landed on the wrong day and no one else could go besides me. So yeah, I'm gonna be excited when we're all moved and all of that, and I can de-stress, settle down a little bit, free up some time, you know. But I'm glad I still got it done. What types of wood are safe for aquariums? The ones that are common in the hobby would be Malaysian driftwood, African bog log, Mopani, spiderwood, and manzanita. Oh, cypress also. There's probably tons of other ones. I just don't know them, and there's tons that aren't safe. So, do your research. Can a pair of peacock gudgeons share a heavily planted tank with a betta? Or is this asking for trouble? In my opinion, asking for trouble. A lot of other people like them. I find peacock gudgeons to be a little bitey, but with the right setup, you can get it done. No. And did I just delete the product I can't talk about? No. At any given time, we're developing like 15 different products. Like, what people don't see is that like some of them are like, oh yeah, I've been working on that for 14 months. Some of this stuff takes a ridiculous long time. You get all the way to a point where you're like, all right, and here's the sample, and it's terrible. Gotta find a new factory because they can't do it to the standards we need it to be at. And then you're like, well, how long does it take to find a new factory? Could take months, right? So yeah, I mean, it varies. Like, if you guys saw the Easy Planter, you started seeing them in our aquariums months before we ever launched them, right? So think of that timeline. You know, we launched them, what, like last month? And then you guys saw them, if you were watching, a few months before that. That means we had the prototypes and we were testing them in our home aquariums and everything. And that was after, so usually how it goes is like, you got an idea. All right, let's get them working on the idea. After a month or two, you get maybe a prototype if you're lucky. Okay, I got the prototype. I got 1 or 2 of these things. Then we make sure and be like, all right, let's make sure it doesn't like put it in water and it kills all my fish. So it's like, all right, they looked pretty good. And then they tested okay in the water. Great. All right, let's have them do a small print run of them. And so they do a small print run. Then you get those. Now, okay, let's design packaging. Let's get a small print run of those. All right. And meanwhile, you've got them in like my fish room, Randy's fish room, Dean's fish room. We're all testing them, that kind of stuff. Jimmy knows about it because he's got to do product packaging. We had to start taking pictures, you know, because I don't have any boxes here, but it's a chicken and the egg thing. So I realize this is a green box. I'm trying to show it to you. But when you make a thing, when you make a sponge filter and it's in green and it's like nothing else, you can't get a picture of the sponge filter on the box without getting one. So you got to make the product. Then you can take pictures, have Jimmy take good pictures of it. Then we can design the box. Then we can have the box printed. Then we can have the factory make the rest of these and put these in the box. So it's a kind of a long process from, ooh, let's make a thing, to actually getting it all the way to where, you know, it's got a barcode on it and it's got the instructions on it. It's got the logos on it. It's got the pictures of it on it. You know, we have to have the foresight of, we're going to have the Aquarium Co-Op tubing. Let's use that. We know we want people to use the Zis Airstone. Let's make sure that's in the picture. Let's make sure that we start using them in blog articles. Let's start, you know, introducing them into videos and things like that. And so, yeah, it can, even when something goes right, and not rarely does it go right at the beginning. We made changes, I think 2 or 3 times to the Easy Planter. So we originally did have making multiple colors, by the way. And the other colors, maybe I'll ask Randy. I'll ask Randy to get me the other colors. I think I got one, because we got like 3 different colors. I got one, Dean got one, and Randy got one, because those were also samples, right? And so, but everyone agreed that the color we ended up going with was the best color. But we had to, like, I bet if I got the samples, I could show you some of the things that we ended up changing long term, actually. And it's all different versions, and it takes time. The factory's got to make the mold, and then they got to do it, then they got to, you know, do the process, and they got to ship it to us from China. It's funny you say developing an aquarium starter kit. You may or may not be looking at something like that. Still a long ways away, but we were talking about it. We were picking out some things we want. We want samples. We got the catalog. We're working on stuff. You know, and not just, you know, if we're working on 100 things, know that only 11 of them are ever going to pan out. Like, there's a lot of steps to hit Aquarium Co-Op standards, get the pricing right, get it to work better. That's one of my big pet peeves is, how does this work better than what's already on the market? Because if it's already on the market and it's works fine, why not just let people buy that one, right? Be a price thing. Something's got to be. So my maintenance has seriously fallen off with the COVID budget, and stress. What are some good recovery methods besides more frequent water changes? Could be relaxing feeding a little bit. You know, you just go, okay, I'm going to feed every other day. That's going to help let some stuff catch up. Could be just taking 1 day a week off. Let, you know, snails catch up on algae. My favorite ones are just clean, like if you got sponge filters or a sponge filter intake, just clean that once a week. Get that where it's going to collect debris for you. You get that debris out of there. It's starting to look a little bit clearer. Like in this aquarium here, you've got all this floating debris because there was all these rocks and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fish. And so we had to clean the pads all the time to get it to be clear. And this one we can almost never get clear. Once I took out all the rocks and everything, the tank actually runs pretty darn clear now. But yes, you are right that water changing, gravel vacuuming, all those maintenance things, there's not really a way to get out of it without doing some of it. Welcome, Anthony. Oh no, he speaks, I get emails. That's true. Candy gets the worst of it. Yeah, just don't email us asking when stuff's gonna come out, because the answer is always, don't know. I can't even tell you when Flu Ball will ship to us. It's bad. I'm having to wait because I've got, like, I just took a drink of soda and now I kind of have to burp. All right, now I'm good. My female powder blue gourami appears to have a swim bladder problem, but I've also heard dwarf gourami disease. What's the difference, and is there a treatment? One of my biggest pet peeves is X fish disease. I heard there's angelfish disease. I heard there's discus disease. I heard there's goldfish disease. I heard there's koi disease. I heard there's dwarf gourami disease. I heard there's African dwarf frog disease. I heard there's African cichlid disease. I heard there's... All of those are just terms for like, yeah, I heard fish die, and I don't know what it is, so it's that fish disease. So the difference between dwarf gourami disease, typically when they're talking about that, they're talking about a virus that specifically only affects dwarf gouramis, or so they think. It typically kills them, but it doesn't kill them in any of the way that a swim bladder disease would. Swim bladder, typically, that's what they use to regulate if they can stay at the middle of the aquarium, the lower, the top, all of that kind of stuff, right? And when that gets out of balance, as in maybe they're constipated, a muscle moves and it's shifted to the side, then they can be on the side or listless. But so you have a swim bladder problem, so it sounds, and it probably is not dwarf gourami disease. So you probably have a constipation issue or something. Could be lots of internal tapeworms, could have gotten egg bound, and maybe that pushed the swim bladder off to the side. It's hard to know, but yes, I would look into swim bladder issues and how you're going to resolve that to have a good chance. How many coolie loaches do I need to display schooling behavior? Typically, I only see it in a lot. So... like when we get hundreds in, you see them dance around the glass and like they hang out. But when you have three, yeah, if you have one good hiding spot, they'll all three be there. I don't know if that's necessarily schooling behavior. But more, yeah, more is that. Yes, neon tetra disease, cardinal tetra disease. Yes, there is dang near a disease for every type of fish. It's kind of funny how that works. Plant light for a tank with a lid. Are you talking about like the plastic type lids maybe? But in general, any light should work over a top. You just gotta fit it to wherever the glass is. So the plastic ones, they usually have a glass strip. If it's glass all the way, almost any light would work for you. Anyone ever build their own external canister filter? Or external filter? Yes, I have. I've got videos on how to make one out of a bucket, for instance. What would the one piece of advice to give someone who wants to open a local fish shop? My advice would be don't. Open an online fish store. Like, ship the fish, do something, but a local fish store right now in this, with COVID and all of that stuff going on right now, worst time. Wait for a better time. What's wrong with flu ball hang-on-backs? Why do you hate on flu ball? One, because that's what I do. And two, there's nothing wrong with their hang-on-backs. That's actually why we sell them at the store, and that's why I tell people to buy them. But as far as flu ball goes, from a company-to-company standpoint, I place an order, and then 3 months later, they might ship it. And that sounds like, oh man, he's being facetious, like it couldn't have been 3 months. Like, no. It's 3 months. Like, that's the lag time they have, and it makes it incredibly hard to do business with them when you're sitting just out of stock and you ask the company and they're like, oh, no, we got your order. Oh, we're just backed up right now. Oh, you just been backed up for 14 months? Yeah. Like, okay, wait, are you, literally, let me, should I do the classic? Let's see if I can find the email. Yeah, here we go. Let me see if I can find it. I know this is good content right now with me not doing anything. So I'm going to read this aloud to you. I sent them a video. And it says, Corey, it's 1,000% understandable you have a business to run. It would be difficult to question any statement you made in your video. You are absolutely, without a doubt, right. We are challenged, and I do not have a firm end date. I can tell you at this writing, again, I can tell you at this writing. Again, we understand you have a business to run, people are responsible, and people you are responsible for, and a devoted and rabid fan base who expect to purchase the products you prefer. I want to thank you for all you've done for our brand. You have been ardent and faithful and vibrant voice and supporter of Fluval, and grateful to have you as a business partner. Basically, what they broke down in a long email is COVID delayed production of stuff in China. It's had impact on their warehouses and things like that. Before that, last year, they had problems with accounting that caused us lots of problems. And, you know, I don't want to get into too many details, but you know, they've had lots of problems, and they recognize the problem, and it's frustrating on the other end to be like, we have no idea how to solve it. Like, oh, all right, well, can you tell me when you're going to ship stuff? And they're like, no. What? You know, like, that's the crazy part is, you know, so to put things in perspective for you guys, there are times when we place an order for $30,000 or $40,000 because we need lights, right? Because we're out of lights. And then they don't ship for 3 months. But then when they get some in, they'll ship the ones we've been waiting on for 3 months, and they'll ship the next order. And for a while they're telling us, we'll order lights each week and we'll try to fulfill them. And then we found out their system, the way it works, and our rep didn't even know this, that if we ordered, let's say you're going to order these, you know, these Fluval nuts, and you're going to order this fertilizer. Let's say we ordered 1,000 of these and 1,000 of these. Well, it turns out they had 500 of these in stock and 0 of these. So they shipped us 500 of these. So the 1,000 of these and the 500 of these, what does a normal company do? A normal company goes, oh, those are back ordered. We'll ship those to you. What does Fluval do? Fluval goes, no, we shipped you 500. We closed out. We didn't. Oh, you still wanted those? Oh, we don't do that. Like, it took a year to find out, like, wait a second. So if we order all this stuff, if you fulfill, and we'd have times where we ordered, like, heaters were a bad one. We'll take 100 of each heater. We'll take 100 of each light. We need 500 Fluval bug bites. And they would go, great. We've got 17 of these heaters, and we're out of lights and out of Fluval bug bites. So they just send us the 17 heaters, and everything else just falls off the radar. And then so we'd be like, do you have lights? Do you have heaters? Like, what is going on? Like, fulfill our order. And they'd be like, well, place an order. And so we do. And then they'd be like, oh, yeah, we got the bug bites or nothing else. And so for a year, we were operating on assumption of when you place an order for these things, they will partial fulfill and they'd ship the rest. And because they're so delayed, no one figured out that they were never finishing shipments. Instead, we would just continually keep placing orders of like, yeah, we still need 100. We still need 100 lights. Ship 100 lights. So that's where it got, you know, they need to change some of the way their structure in their company works. Because at one point in the video, I was like, I mean, I get it, but why can't one of you, like, that are answering this email, go make sure the pallets of stuff ships out of the warehouse tomorrow? Like, what's preventing that? And no one has got a good excuse. So it's like, well, I like the products a lot. I like the people that work there a lot. But at a certain point, my hands are tied. Like, I don't have product to sell. Don't have product to sell. What do you do? What do you do? Yeah, the rabid fan base. Trust me, they see the hashtag Fluval's tripping and all of that. Like, they realize that, you know, that you guys like to hear my opinion. You like Fluval products. No one's denying that kind of stuff. And they know, they know. That's the thing, is like, it's hard when they're like, we know, but like, one of the big problems that they had, and they don't have full control over it, but I think they could do better, was the warehouse they ship our products from is in California. If someone tested positive for COVID, they had to shut the business down for 7 days, right? Shut the warehouse down for 7 days. And I said to them, I get that, all right? But we're talking 3 months now, right? And then let's say someone tested positive every Monday, right? At what point do you go, what if we only brought like 5 people back instead of the 50 that work there? I don't know how many people work there, but what if we only brought 5 back? And so the odds of a COVID positive test are very low. And then Then we started shipping all the big orders out so that we could get the most, right? Because in a warehouse, whether you're shipping 5 lights or 500 lights, takes roughly the same amount of time. In fact, you could argue it takes less time to wrap a whole pallet of lights than it does to go and pick different lights. But I was like, when you open, couldn't someone work on just getting us our order, and then you could go and get like Petco or whoever else their orders so that people can get your product? And they don't really have an answer for that. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't know how to help you guys. What are we gonna do? You know? And then they've got communication problems too. They they got rid of one of the heaters and replaced it with another heater. They just rebranded it from Marina to Fluval. We were ordering it for 6 months, basically, as a Marina heater. And then eventually, I saw that. I was like, wait, what is this Fluval heater? It's the same thing. And the rep was like, oh yeah, we changed the name. Oh, and it changed the barcode. Yeah, that's why you haven't been getting it for 6 months. And it's like, okay. Serenity now. All right, well, that's a good place to, good place to end it, because I have to go take Sassy to the vet. As we talked about earlier, I don't have the tools to diagnose what's wrong with Sassy. Likely some hip and joint pain. She's 16 years old and ornery and blind, and she's been having troubles. So we're going to take her to the vet. And hopefully the vet will go, oh, she just needs more tacos and she'll be fine. More likely it's like, well, maybe we got to look at some shots or some therapy, something to get those joints moving. She's getting older, kind of getting that old person syndrome. Like, you stop moving, it becomes harder to move. When it becomes harder to move, you don't move as much. When that happens, more pain sets in. And so we're going to try and do what we can. I already ordered, way too much in dog supplements and glucosamine and love. And now we're going to get her checked out just to make sure there's nothing that we haven't missed out on. And we're hoping, on one hand, you hope that it's like, well, your dog's old. Nothing you can do about it. Because it's like, okay, there's nothing wrong. But then on the other hand, you're like, wait, if it's just old, that means there's no way to help her. So it's a sad time. So I'm going to go with my wife. And, I'll drive. She can hold Sassy the Destroyer and keep her comfy. She won't want to go. She knows that she won't want to go to the vet. But, hopefully they'll let me in. Normally it's been like one person can go in because of COVID. So we will see. And we hope for a good outcome. That's all we can do. But I got to hop in the car and start driving because we got to be there at 5. And it's 4:33 already. And it's at least 20 minutes to get there. So thanks for hanging out, everyone. I'll see you next Monday. Hopefully everything goes right. Hopefully I can get through a week without some kind of leak coming through the roof from one of the buildings that we have. By the way, I didn't realize to mention that, but the retail store also has water coming through the ceiling that needs to be fixed. And yeah, add that to the leaks. I can't even fix that one. Landlord won't let me. They need to do it. They are working on it. All right. Thank you, guys. Buy all of our stuff. Subscribe if you haven't already. The more stuff you buy, the better. We could use it, honestly. And I know it's not a Black Friday sale, but know that, you're helping out. Hopefully, I consider it to be a good cause. And the word of the day, when you go over to Bob's stream in about 30 minutes, hit him with the hashtag Sassy. And wish us luck. So, bye-bye for now.